Good day, class. So this is the part 2 of our online discussion with regards to our subject physics. So more sa ating topic for today would be revolve around the using of our scientific calculators. Since online class naman kita na cannot fully teach you how to solve them. So let's just go over with the formula and ang ilang uses with regards sa pag-solve sa ila. Usually when it comes sa mga topic, I would prefer teaching it to you in face-to-face nga class kapag record ako mo sa inyong scientific calculator and how to formally input kung ano ang mga kinahanglan na in order para hindi mag syntax error sa aton nga sidecar. Okay, so sa naman lang, I will not be using this kapag nasa quizzes, but at least I will teach you sa ilang mga purpose sa ilang mga formula. You have your two-dimensional motions, you have your projectile motion, and your gravitational uniform circular motions. Okay, so let us break down kung ano na sila. Okay, in your air resistance free, a projectile sent off in the angle above the horizon with an initial velocity will have the range equal to. So the formula that you will be using kung if you are, for example, throwing an object. So demonstrate. Let's go to drawings. So what is projectile motion class? Okay, so for example, if economy, okay, and if you're throwing a ball, so nagyan ko sa inyong mga CRI. Okay, so the projectile motion is kasabay ng origin, mag-throw pasaka, then may resistance in yung air, then mapanaon. So that is to form your projectile. Okay, so yung mga ang ano na is your range or ang distance sa iyong ginabuhi nga object halin sa imong origin up to sa iyang end. Okay, ang imong range is composed of your VI squared then your sin 2 angle or yun times 2 mo yung mga sin angle. Okay, so ang angle mo is depending kung ano kataas or kanubo ang imong mga ginabuyan or ginabuyan yung mga object. Then you have your G. G signifies for your gravity. Okay, initial velocity is ang mga speed sa inyong object that naghalin sa inyong hands. Okay, whereas the time of your flight is composed of from kadugayon sa inyong object halin sa inyong hand pato sa iyang final destination is composed of your T signifies for your time to VI which is your initial velocity then C angle over the gravity. So for your gravity class, the gravity is always constant here sa sa Earth which is your 9.8 9.8. So for your gravity is 9.8 meter per second squared. Okay, so there is a baba you have here the acceleration due to gravity. So last time we just summarize it. So if you're using the meter, it is 9.8. Then if you're using centimeters, okay, so it is 980 centimeters per second squared. Then if you're using 1 feet per seconds, so it is 32 feet per seconds. So yan ang conversion factor. So your gravity here on Earth is always constant. Next is the gravitation. In Newton's law of gravitation, it states that every body in this universe attracts every other body with a force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. This lies technically described as for your Fg, force gravity, which is equal to their gravitational force, is equal to gm1, gm2 over r squared. So, ano mga r? Ano na ang mga meanings ng mga factors? And your r squared signifies it is the square of distance between the bodies. So, for example, you have your Earth, and then you have your human. Kadako ang tao sa giant. So, your Earth mismo plus has a gravity. So, the distance between sa center sa imong gravity and sa imong human being, amo na ang imong r squared. Then you have your m1 which is ang mass ng Earth. Then ang imong m2 which is your body mass. And then m1 is ang smaller which is your human body. Then m2 which is your the mass of your Earth. Then your G represents constant value, which is 6.67 times 10 raised to negative 11 Newton meter squared per kilograms squared. Or pwede mo sa you will use ang imong English system, which is your 3.44 times 10 raised to negative 8 pounds feet squared per slug squared. Next is the uniforms or uniform circular motion. So the emails are very important on this atom is the theoretical meanings of them. You have there the uniform circular motion is motion at constant speed along in a curved path of constant radius. We have here demonstration of A, B, and C. So when you're in uniform circular motion where the force AC stops acting, the ball moves in the direction indicated by the tangent of here A and B. So for example, this is the circle, the constant circular motion, so titigil ang mga object. Then therefore, kung stop na siya, ay is either makanto di ang mga object pato sa mga A sa tangent sa mga A and B. Okay, so the centrifugal acceleration is produced when centrifugal force which is directed toward the center of the circle. Okay, di ba may center I have here. So ang pato sa tunga which is your centrifugal acceleration. Where's the center of the circle, which is the body moves, and this can be computed as ang formula for centrifugal acceleration is AC, okay, ang acceleration, then C stands for centrifugal, okay, which is equal to velocity squared over R. Ang R na class is the radius of the path or ang mga from the center point up to this, okay, that is radius. Kaya diba ang aton nga as a circle, ang half sa mga circle, that is your diameter. Ang 1/4 lang na from the center to the other end. So, mo lang ni. Okay, this is your diameter. This is radius. Alright. So, V squared or square of your velocity of your body, then your centripetal acceleration. Centrifugal force naman ng class is the inward force that keeps the body in the circular path. Its magnitude is mathematically described as Fc is equals to mv squared over radius, where Fc is your centrifugal force, m stands for your mass, same yapon, v stands for your velocity, and r stands for your radius. So we have here examples on the solve problems para mas malasan na itong discussion kaya mas masave kita time. Okay, so ara na sa aton nga module. So sa aton mo din class hindi ko pasolve sa mga budlay so kapin na if you're dealing with angles, so ipatawahin ka na. So let's now move on sa ating work and energy. So energy is often defined as the ability to do work. This seems like a fine dissemination until you discover that work is practically defined as the transfer of your energy. Since I also teach chemistry, ang nagtatapos ang energy to class is only being transferred, wala na siya put into waste. Okay, so the only way that energy can be transferred is by force acting through a distance. This transfer of energy is called your work, and its relationship to work and distance agrees with most people's common understanding of the word. If a horse is pulling a cart, for example, most would agree that the horse is doing work on the cart. Most people would also agree that the amount of work is proportional to the force which is the horse must pull. Therefore, makaubra kita sa aton nga formula that work is proportional to your force. So, ang proportion na sign, di ka magpalipat. The infinity na sign, but without sa yung other end. It also seems reasonable to the most people that the amount of the work done by the horse is directly proportional to the distance which the force is being applied. Or kung ano para distant or ano kalayo ang na-travel or ang nagagawa sa inyong course. For example, therefore work is proportional to the distance. Therefore, your work is equal to the force and also distance. So a foot pound is common unit for your energy. In English system of unit, the corresponding unit of energy in your metric system is called your joules. So if you're using metric system, so ginagamitan ng unit is letter J or joule. Defined as the amount of work done by 1 N or 1 Newton work for 1 Newton of force when acting through a distance of 1 meter. So for example, lang ginugwas lang ang ratio that you have your work. So your work is equals to 1 feet pounds. Okay? Therefore, ang proportional or equal sign, yung equivalent na would be 1 pound in every 1 man nga feet. Therefore, ang mga unit nga foot pound can be written as joules. Okay? Then is equals to 1 Newton per meter. The force must be the same direction as the distance, or the distance in the same direction as your force. If your force is in the opposite direction, it will counteract with the force na ginahatag contrary. You need to do much work para mas move mo siya into opposite direction para madala mo siya sa same na direction. Next is the power. Your power is defined as the ratio of your work done over time necessary in doing it. We have your power is equals to work over time. Power is analogous to velocity. Both concepts are rates, whereas one of the rate of your traveling distance, the other is the rate of your doing work. The shorter the time in both cases, the greater the rate. So, you have your power is in ang mga units natin ng power is you have your HP, which is ibig sabihin na horsepower, and also watts. So, for every 1 HP, you have your 55 feet lines, pounds per seconds, or you can also write it in 1 joules per second is equals to 1 Newton meter per second. Tandaan natin mga constant value. It's either, ano lang ipabasa please Next is the type of our mechanical energy. Energy can be transferred from one object to another. We have defined work, but what is energy? Work can change the energy content of an object, but how can we tell the fact that there is no single of energy content of an object? Because energy can take in your different forms. You have different types of your energy. First is your kinetic energy. Kinetic energy or energy in your moving objects have generate energy by virtue of their motion. This motion is called kinetic energy after the Greek word of moving. Kinetic energy is produced by an unbalanced force that accelerates the object from rest to its final velocity. Okay, final velocity man. Since ang imong initial velocity, kay since naka-dictate na at rest, therefore imong initial velocity is 0. The amount of your kinetic energy of an object has depend only on how much mass it has and on its velocity. The relationship between your kinetic energy, mass, and velocity can be found by considering the work done in accelerating the object from rest to its final velocity. Assume that the kinetic energy of an object comes entirely from a constant acceleration or accelerating force acting over certain distances. The kinetic energy is equal to the work done in accelerating body that is expressed in Newton or joules. So kinetic energy is equals to force acceleration and the distance. The amount of acceleration produced by force is related to the mass of the object of Newton's second law, which is force is equal to mass acceleration. The amount of distance over this force is applied can be found from the average velocity of your object, which is d on distance is equal to velocity average times your time. So ano kayo paano magpaka sa velocity average? You have your VI and VF. So i-add mo yung 2 then divide mo lang sa 2. Then times mo lang sa time. So in terms of your acceleration, the average velocity, the kinetic energy of an object can be stated that Ka is equals to your force acceleration, then times mo sa velocity average times your time. Combine niya ang dua ka formulas. So, sa ato sa physics, so ganda mo lang din mga formula kag combine lang na. So, as long kabalo kang di na sila halin, you will not have any problem of sort. So, assuming that the object started from rest, acceleration uniformly up to the final velocity. Acceleration is simply final velocity over time, and the average velocity is simply one half of its final velocity. So therefore, if you're looking for acceleration sa certain object, then with regards sa yung kinetic energy, is equal to your VF or your final velocity over time. So find velocity average is equals to VF divided by 2. Ganun ka ba ito? Same average. It is VF plus VI over 2. Since ang mo man initial velocity is 0, so usually VF lang din na ang imo ginasolve. So putting this relationship into expression for our kinetic energy, Ka is equals to mass times VF over time times VF divided by 2. Therefore, you can derive this formula. So you have your 1/2, 1/2, because you have 2 there's below. Yan, yes. Then, ang imong velocity, you have your V1, VF magiging VL, so magiging square na ang imong velocity. So, this is a shortcut nga formula nga ma-derive mo. So, another type of your energy is your potential energy. So, it is an object can have energy by virtue of its position as well by the virtue of its velocity. A massive object located some distance above the ground clearly has some energy associated with its height. The amount of energy can be figured from work that is necessary to get up there. Work is always force times your distance. So, the force necessary to lift an object in its weight and the distance is its height. So, work is equals to the weight of the object and its height. Okay, kung paano mo siya i-lift. Mamaan ka ng difference wala sa nagamit sang mass. Because if you're using weight, so it is mass times G. Okay? Ang mass class it is the mass is the weight of the body, but it is affected by your gravity. That's why you're using weight instead of mass. Okay? So, energy imparted upon object by lifting to the weight is called your gravitational potential energy, which can be expressed in Newton meter or joules. As long as the height is small compared to the radius of the earth, we can think that the weight of an object as constant given the product of the mass and acceleration due to its gravity. Therefore, potential energy is equals to mass times your gravity and height. Okay? So, doon nagduda yung the height. So, it is now for your potential energy. Elastic potential energy naman class of this optional lang na additional sa aton. So, take up lang. Okay, another form of potential energy, there is one source and searching as a spring. This is one common form of potential energy because as we pointed out, our discussion of the Hooke's law, nearly only solid subject acts at least a little like your spring. So, ano galing sa atin na Hooke's law? If you have F is equals to K, ang constant, then ang change sa imong distance. Okay? The energy stored in stretching a spring is called your elastic potential energy of your spring. Or, and so proceed sa ating momentum. Okay, so you have momentum. So you have your natures of momentum. Momentum or linear movement is basically the product of the mass of moving body and its velocity. It is expressed in kilogram meters per second. So you can ask P is equals to mv, whereas P is equals to your momentum. So ang unit for your, or ang mga sign for your momentum is letter P. And kita nyo na, mass na nasa B and is also for your velocity. So, simply multiply your mass of your object to your velocity and that will be your momentum. So, for example, you're given as a, for the mass of your car, naglawain ako nung sa masakyan. So, car. Okay, so the mass of the car, okay, mass class sign be affected by your gravity is 100. Ganda yung car ba? Torque no, so it is 100 kilograms the mass. Then if it is moving at a certain direction, which is 225 meters per second, okay, so that would be the velocity. So simply multiply 100 kilograms times 25 meters per second. So you will have an answer of 250 kilograms meter per second. Okay? So that is your momentum. Movement na kasi. So collision naman class is the momentum is also conserved in collisions. Kaya ng collision, it is pagbuuan ng isang duwa ka object. You have your elastic collision. Here you have your elastic collision. In perfect elastic collision, there will be such as kinetic energy collision processed before in figure 2.15 is the law. Shows an elastic two-dimensional collision of your two what's it called masses. So you have your velocity A and velocity B. So elastic, there is a spring between them. So kung hindi sa elastic, elastic ang kita niyan sa dalaw. So for example, ang duha ka object, hit, therefore bounce back sila in opposite direction. The coefficient of restriction is defined as the ratio between the relative velocity of your VF minus V1. So, parallel na. Kita nyo niya may sign sa pabaw after the collision, the velocity of approach V1 minus V2. Therefore, elastic velocity is proportional of your V2 minus V proportion 1 over V1 minus V2. So in elastic collision, ang mga klase in perfect inelastic collision, the body sticks together and the kinetic energy changes into heat, sound, and other forms. Ang muna di kakadto ang energy, wala sang energy nga kakadula lang. As shown in the two cards of the equal masses approach each other the velocity of equal magnitude. Therefore, mass 0. Magiging 0 ang ilang velocity. Conservation of momentum and energy. Ito na pag-discuss. Next is your impulse. Ito na pagpadala natin. Change in your force, time. So, let's proceed sa ito nga density and your pressure. So, what is density? Density is of the fluids defined as the ratio between your mass and volume. It is mathematically expressed as mass over volume. So, makita ka ng V and we are talking about density, hindi na siya velocity but it is volume. So, what are your volumes? So, kaya mga unit for your volumes, you have your meter, milliliter, you have your centimeter cube, and liter. Okay, may harap na tayo, deciliter cube. So you have your meter cube, ml, and okay. In every 1000 ml, you will also have 1000 centimeter cube. Okay? In every 1000 centimeter cube, you can also have 1 liter. Therefore, if you have lesser now ml, therefore mas manubo man ang imong unit value for your liter. So, may conversion factor man na siya makita nyo. So, simply, if you're looking for your density, okay, it is m over v. Okay? Since mga basta mo makita ka sa tatlo ka unit factor, you can use the triangle again. Okay? Paano magugalain sa triangle? Tulukan mo lang yung formula. If you have MD sa babaw, dira na siya makadto sa top sa mga pyramid. Then for your left side, you will have your D and V naman for your right side. Okay? Paano ganito na itong pyramid? If you're looking for your mass, okay, the unit for your mass or yung mga formula for your mass is mass. Okay? The formula for mass is equal to density times your volume. Okay? Now, if you're looking naman for your volume, mga class, it is mass over density. So, what is the unit for our density? If you're taking, usually using sa mga density, usual mga unit for your mass is in grams. So, if in grams naman siya class, ang mga unit mo sa mga volume is centimeters cube, also in liters. So, usual mga unit. So, for example, if you are given a mass of an object, if the mass of an object is 50 grams, okay, mass. Then, ang volume sa mga water is 100 centimeters cube. Okay? If you're looking for your density, it is 50 grams over 100 centimeters cube. So simply divide 50 divided by 100. So it is density is equals to 0.5 grams per centimeters cube. So usual nga unit when it comes sa mga density is grams per centimeter cube, kilograms per centimeter cube, depending sa unit sa imong mass, okay, kag sa unit sa imong volume. So, dira ta lang yung end aton sa buong topic. So, we'll continue sa aton yung pressure, then mga pressure in gas. Okay, so sa pressure tayo medyo mabulamid. Then next na topic is your heat, energy forms. When it comes sa ating temperature, I'll be using a different module kaya mas may araw ko itong masapos when it comes sa ating temperature. Okay, so that will be all class, and thank you and good day.